If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys. And today, continuing the big weekend for Death Metal Legends. Yesterday I talked about Dying Fetus. Now we're going to talk about the other big one, and we are talking about the latest studio offering from Cryptopsy as GOMORRAH Burns. So yeah, this is a long-awaited album from these Montreal, Quebec legends, as, holy crap, I've been a fan of this band for at least 2 to 3 albums. Blasphemy Made Flesh, Known So Vile, and to a lesser extent Whisper Supremacy. But they are back for their first studio full-length in 11 years, but in between 2015 and 2018 we've had 2 EPs, The Book of Suffering, Tome 1 and 2, but we've been wanting a full-length, and here we are with a new full-length from Cryptopsy. So this is their 8th studio full-length overall. And of course, Cryptopsy, for those who don't know, legends out of Canada, mostly the Montreal, Quebec scene, one of the early pioneers of brutal death metal and technical death metal, as they were able to mash both genres, or both styles of death metal very well. Of course, they did have their down periods, like And Then You'll Beg, where they kind of fucked up the mix and the production and such, and then The Unspoken King, when they went down the deathcore rabbit hole and have finally returned back to their roots a little bit. But let's go ahead and talk about As GOMORRAH Burns. So we kick things off with Lascivious Undivine. I probably butchered that, but whatever. So immediately, chaotic technical riffs, blast beats galore. Basically the trademark styles you get from Cryptopsy, the chaotic technical riffs with wild tremolos and hyper blast beats. After all, Flo Monnier is such an awesome drummer. After all, he can play pretty much any style, and he can mesh together with that kind of drum style that a band wants him to do, whether it be Nader Sadek or Arise from Worms, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, pinch harmonics come into play, thrashy beats come in, and you even get a couple little triplet chugging sections, which triplet chugs are not really on here at all, apart from this opening track. But one thing that is apparent, a good chunk of this album does bring in some dissonance, whether it be in the chaotic sense or even doing dissonant melodies to kind of accentuate certain parts. Like, I would say an example of dissonant melodies kind of accentuating certain parts, I would say, would be in the songs Flayed the Swine and The Righteous Lost, where the dissonant melodies that kind of come in there kind of help accentuate certain technical parts or even build a little bit of atmosphere within the song. Whereas even in the closing track, which was the longest track of the album at about 6 minutes, Praise the Filth, the breakdown at the very end has a lot of dissonance going for it to make it sound apocalyptic, kind of giving that apocalyptic vibe to the breakdown, and that dissonance carries through and fades to the end, which was really cool. But getting back into track order, then we get In Abeyance. You pretty much get classic Cryptopsy right out of the gate with technical guitars, the hyper blasts. It definitely feels like something you would have heard on the first couple of albums, most particularly None So Vile, which I will say is my favorite of the Cryptopsy albums. But you do get some cool, like, open chugging with blasts and wild guitars. But you do get some, like, really cool guitar slides on the riff in the middle before you get some nice hammer-on and pull-off madness towards the end. Godless Deceiver insane hyperblast and quickfire tremolos, but then it does kind of alternate with a vicious groove. Although this song, I feel like they kind of were repeating that hyperblast and tremolo parts a little bit too much, but luckily they were able to do something different afterwards, and that's get into a bit more of a thrash beat, some more machine gun riffs coming in, and even a nice melodic break where you do get a really cool lead that packs shred and melody. Now, the leads, whenever they do pop up, which I would say about 60% of this album has a guitar solo, all of them are very melodic. Like, Ill Ender brings in actually some more Melodeath riffs towards the end. But then you get into Flayed the Swine, as well as The Righteous Lost, Obescent. Like, those songs will have a lead, whether it's drawn out or quick. It's all about the melody and atmosphere, but bringing in some level of, hey, look what I can do, whether it be in shred or even in obescent, where you get some tapping going on the guitar during that solo. But back to Ill Ender, that song kind of sets off like a couple of things. Like, even in, I'm trying to remember how to pronounce it again, Lascivious Undivine, that as well as Ill Ender, the grooves that kind of come in kind of made me think of Cattle Decapitation to some extent, like a cattle decap groove. Now, The Righteous Lost, pretty much it's like all over the map. Wild bass lines, blazing fast double bass, awesome drum flare, chaotic guitars, more thrash beats come in with the machine gun riffs before the rhythms do change up, but the riffs get punchier, dissonant melodies, like I said, and even some big chugs towards the end. Not like triplet chugs, but just chugs. Now, Praise the Filth, I love how that opens up with this awesome tremolo melody before it settles into a groove, and holy shit, bend those fucking riffs, I will say. And then, of course, back into classic Cryptopsy chaos we go, but the tremolos throughout the song do more to provide melody rather than chaos, I would say. Now, that's pretty much all the songs. Like, most of the songs kind of try and do a bunch of different things, whether it be incorporating some groove, maybe a couple thrashy parts, but it's all about that controlled chaos that Cryptopsy has been known to do for many, many years. Now comes the parts of the album that I didn't like or had issues with. I would say, first and foremost, the production. Like, the guitar tone I felt sounded a little bit too warm for death metal. Like, I thought the guitar sounded a little bit too clean on this album. I feel like if it was just a little bit grittier and a little bit more nasty, but a little heavier, I think the guitar tone would have been perfect on here. It's just I thought the guitar tone was a little bit too warm and clean. The snare tone, I felt sounded a little bit processed. And then the kick drums, I feel like they were triggered. Like, I think they did some triggering on the kicks. And I think, especially in that, like, blazing fast double bass part at the beginning of The Righteous Lost, that was really where I heard the triggers really at its fullest. And then Matt, who's been the new guy on vocals since Unspoken King in 2008, and he's doing, like, growls and, like, high screams. I don't know if I'm just a purist or what have you, but I've just always been a Lord Worm guy. I just have always loved his, like, junkyard dog growling brutality and his high screams. Whereas Matt, he does a solid job, although I feel like his growl sounds a little bit too close to, like, a mid-range Travis Ryan growl. And the screams, I wasn't quite sold on, so I guess I'm just not sold on Matt as the vocalist. Whereas I'm one of those guys who love Cryptopsy for the Lord Worm, and maybe to a lesser extent Mike DeSalvo, like Whisper Supremacy in particular. But I guess it's all to each their own type situation here. But overall, the songwriting was pretty solid. Like I said, they were going for all sorts of different parts. Granted, some of the transitions may have been a bit jagged at times, but what they're able to play, the musicianship and the musicality, is top-notch. After all, with a band like Cryptopsy, how can you not have top-notch musicians? It's just the production does hold this album back because I felt, like I said, guitar's a bit too warm and clean, snare tone sounded thin and processed, the kicks sounded like they were triggered, and Matt's vocals, not 100% sold on them. And for those reasons, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. Like, songwriting-wise, really good stuff. The production, I felt like the guitars needed to be a bit dirtier, the drums needed to sound less processed and triggered, and I guess I just need to get used to Matt's vocals. But that's just my opinion. What did you guys think of As GOMORRAH Burns by Cryptopsy? Let me know in the comments below, and until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.